In 1947, a retired agricultural extension agent in Ohio wrote a 12-page booklet at his kitchen table. It listed 9 ways a single white mineral could replace every pesticide, every fungicide, and every commercial spray available for the home garden. The booklet circulated from hand to hand through rural communities for 3 decades. Then it quietly disappeared from every library shelf and county office in the state. What didn't disappear was the mineral. It is still sitting under your sink right now, and most people use it to wash clothes. What you are about to hear is documented in verifiable university studies, in historical agricultural records, and in basic chemistry that anyone can check. It is told here so that you understand it, evaluate it, and apply it judiciously within the law, with amounts backed by science, and with the warnings that the records themselves include. Because this mineral, when misused, causes as much damage as any chemical. And you are going to learn that today as well. The mineral we are talking about is borax, sodium tetraborate. It is not a laboratory product, it is a rock. It has been mined from the ground in Boron, California, a town in the Mojave Desert, since 1872. The same 20 mule teams featured in 19th century photographs hauled 10 tons at a time across 165 miles of desert to bring it to the ports. The same mineral, the same source for over 150 years. No one invented it, no corporation patented it. It comes from the earth. And in the rural communities of Holmes County, Ohio, where Amish farmers have been cultivating for generations without relying on industrial inputs, the knowledge about this mineral was never interrupted, not because they kept it a secret, but because they never had a reason to stop using it. While the 1947 booklet disappeared from county offices, those communities continued applying the same knowledge their grandparents had learned from government pamphlets, including one from 1926 that described in detail how to protect an apple orchard for the entire season for the cost of a tablespoon of this white powder. The first use changed the way anyone looks at a line of ants crossing the yard. The ants building colonies under your garden beds are not the problem. The queen producing 2,000 eggs a day underground is the problem. And that is exactly the mistake everyone makes when they grab a contact spray. They kill 50 workers on the surface. The queen stays alive. Within 48 hours, the line reappears in the exact same spot, just as long. Borax does exactly the opposite. It does not kill on contact, and that is the entire strategy. Research from the University of California accurately measured the effective concentration range for whole colony elimination, between 0.5 and 1% borax in a liquid solution. No more, no less. That window is not arbitrary. If the concentration is higher, the worker dies before reaching the nest. The queen survives. The effort is wasted. If it is lower, the dose reaching the queen is insufficient for a systemic effect. The ratio that falls within that range is 1 level teaspoon of borax dissolved in 1 cup of warm water. Dissolved first before adding the sugar. This matters if you mix the dry powder directly with granulated sugar. The workers detect the borax particles and avoid them, eating only the sugar. Dissolved in water first, it becomes homogeneous, invisible, irresistible. Once the solution is prepared, soak cotton balls and place them in jar lids along the trail. Do not kill the scouts. Do not wipe away the pheromone trail. Let them find it. What happens next is pure chemistry. The workers drink the sugary solution, carry it back to the nest, and there occurs what entomologists call trophallaxis, the mouth-to-mouth exchange of fluids, which is the foundation of the entire social structure of ants. Through this shared feeding system, the borax solution reaches the larvae, the inner workers, and finally the queen. Ants cannot vomit. Once they ingest borax, the mineral turns into boric acid inside their digestive system. It interferes with the enzymes that process glucose, proteins, and fat, and the colony collapses from the inside within 3 to 7 days. Not 50 dead workers on the surface. The entire colony, including the queen, for the cost of less than 1 gram of a mineral that costs a few pesos a kilo. If this has already made you look differently at the blue box sitting on your shelf, hit the like button now, because the uses that follow this one will also change how you manage snails, caterpillars, and the codling moth this year. My father-in-law, Don Antonio, came to this knowledge through a different path than mine. He was a beekeeper, And for 40 years, he never used a contact product near his hives because he knew what it did to the bees. He taught me to always ask before applying anything in the garden, does this kill what I want to kill, or does it also kill what I need to live? That question is the reason why the 1947 booklet included warnings that modern videos about borax rarely mention. And these are warnings you are going to hear today because the same record that documents the results also documents the limits. That is also buried knowledge. Not the romanticized version that everything old is safe, but the complete version with dosages, with conditions, with the mistakes that ruin the season, and with those that ruin the soil for 3 years. The book is not free, but if you have spent seasons buying spray after spray, watching the same pest return every time, you already know how much it costs not to know this. In the next segment, I will give you the complete protocol for snails, caterpillars, powdery mildew, and the use of borax in soil that almost no one connects with fruit production, as well as the dosing mistake that can sterilize your land for up to 3 years without you noticing until the following season. The mistake I promised to explain at the end of the previous segment is called boron accumulation, and it is the only mistake in this protocol that cannot be corrected in the same season you make it. The University of Delaware documented in its cooperative extension that symptoms of boron deficiency in plants appear below 1 part per million of available boron in the soil, and toxicity symptoms appear above 5 parts per million. That is not a wide margin. A review published in PMC by the U.S. National Institutes of Health confirmed that the gap between boron deficiency and toxicity is one of the narrowest of any plant micronutrient, which complicates its application in agricultural production. 1 level tablespoon per gallon of water distributed over 10 square meters of garden once a year in the spring. That is it. A tablespoon, not a heaping one. Not 2 because you forgot to apply it last year and want to make up for it. 1. And if your soil already has adequate boron levels, you should not use borax as a micronutrient source, but rather for the protocols coming up next, because in those uses, the amount that touches the soil is minimal and the mechanism is completely different. The first protocol that almost no one knows is the simplest of all: snails and slugs, the ones that come out at night and turn your lettuce into lace. Dry borax powder acts on them exactly like salt, but without leaving sodium toxicity in the soil. Salt destroys the soil structure and makes it inhospitable for beneficial microorganisms. Borax does not. Sprinkle a thin ring of dry borax around the base of each plant you want to protect. Half a centimeter wide, 2 or 3 centimeters away from the stem, not on the leaves, not on the roots, just on the surrounding soil. When the slug crosses that line, the borax draws moisture out through its skin. It cannot cross. You will know because the slime trail stops right at the edge of the ring. Clean inside, slime outside. The second protocol requires a correction that most videos about borax omit. Foliar borax kills leaf-chewing insects, not sap-sucking ones. Aphids never chew the surface. They drink from the inside. And borax is a stomach poison. If it is not swallowed, it does not kill. For aphids, neem extract at 1 or 2% applied early in the morning is the right tool. For caterpillars and leaf beetles that do chew tissue, half a teaspoon of borax in 4 liters of water with a few drops of dish soap. Spray early, cover the underside. Test on one branch first and wait 48 hours. And here comes the warning that has no flexibility. Borax is highly toxic to bees, not mildly, highly, both on contact and if ingested. My father-in-law, Don Antonio, knew this before I even knew there was a name for it. 40 years as a beekeeper had taught him to read the behavior of his colonies after everything he applied nearby. He never used borax on plants with open flowers. Never. The rule is absolute. Apply before the flowers open or after the petals fall. The third protocol solves something that half of cucurbit growers see every season and think they have already lost. Powdery mildew, that whitish-gray powder that appears one morning on your zucchini or cucumber leaves and spreads to the whole bed in less than a week. The fungus that causes powdery mildew cannot survive in an alkaline environment. Borax raises the pH of the leaf surface to the alkaline side. The vegetable oil added to the mixture anchors the borax to the surface, long enough for that pH change to do its job. The recipe documented in the agricultural manual: 1 teaspoon of borax, 1 tablespoon of cooking oil, 4 liters of water. Shake vigorously before each pass. 3 applications with a 4-day interval between them. Cover the underside of each leaf because the fungus hides underneath. I have seen completely white leaves recover in 2 weeks with this protocol, but the same micronutrient warning applies here. Do not use it as a weekly preventative. The borax that runs off the leaves into the soil with every watering adds up. Use it when you see the fungus. Stop when the fungus disappears. And now the point that was hardest for me to understand the first time I read it, because it seemed too simple to be real. Tomato flowers that fall off before setting fruit, peppers that bloom without producing a single pepper, apples that have spectacular blossoms in the spring and give you almost nothing in the fall. 9 times out of 10, that is not a disease. It is a boron deficiency in the soil. Boron is the micronutrient that regulates the formation of the pollen tube, the channel the pollen grain needs to fertilize the flower's oval. Without available boron in the soil, the pollination process remains incomplete. The flower does not set, the plant drops it. And the problem has a detail that most people ignore. Boron availability depends on soil pH. According to the University of Massachusetts Cooperative Extension, boron is most available for absorption in neutral pH soils and becomes less available in both highly acidic and highly alkaline soils. If you have spent seasons adding borax and still see flowers dropping, check your soil's pH before adding more. It could be that the boron is there and simply isn't accessible to the roots. A pH corrector is the tool you need, not more borax. And here is the secret that the 1947 booklet saved for the end, the one that Holmes County, Ohio farmers had known since the 1920s, the one that appeared in U.S. Department of Agriculture bulletins over 100 years ago and practically disappeared from agricultural extension records right as the apple orchard pesticide industry began to grow. The codling moth. If you have ever cut an apple from your own tree and found a brown tunnel leading straight to the core with a white larva curled up inside, you already know it. It has been the #1 enemy of home apple orchards in North America for over a century. The larvae spend the winter hibernating in the cracks and crevices of the bark near the base of the tree. When the temperature rises in the spring, they wake up and climb up the trunk toward the new shoots. In late winter, before the buds open, borax is mixed with warm water until it forms a paste with the consistency of thick cream. A wide band is painted with a brush around the trunk of each apple tree, from 30 centimeters off the ground up to 1 meter. The larva trying to climb crosses that band. The borax destroys the intestinal bacteria it needs to digest wood. The larva keeps climbing, but it cannot process what it eats. It dies upon reaching the shoots. The cost for 4 trees is less than a tablespoon of borax and 20 minutes of work. One season when I learned this method, I counted the fruit from 4 treated trees, 38 out of 40 apples perfectly clean to the core, 2 with a single larva each. 38 out of 40 for the cost of a few grams of a mineral that costs a few pesos a kilo. Valentina, my daughter, who works as a dental assistant in Morelia, calls me from time to time with questions from patients who garden in their backyards. One asked her why his apple tree never produced clean fruit despite the sprays he used every season. She sent me the question. I sent her this recipe. A year later, the man brought her a bag of apples and told her it was the first clean harvest from that tree in 12 years. 12 years buying spray after spray after spray. 1 year with a borax paste and a brush. That kind of result is exactly what we gather in the buried knowledge. Not the simplified version that says borax kills everything, but the complete version with every protocol, every dose, every window of use, and the specific mistakes that turn each step into a tool or a hazard. The book is not free, but if you have a tree that hasn't produced clean fruit in years, and you have spent seasons paying for sprays that are repeated without solving the problem, you already know what not having this information is costing you. And the question remains the same one that should accompany you every season you depend on a store aisle to protect your garden. What if the market fails tomorrow? What will your family eat? At the close of this video, I am going to tell you what that 1947 booklet said on its last page, the part that never circulated because whoever found it decided to keep it to themselves. The last page of the 1947 booklet did not list a 10th use. It listed a warning. The agent who wrote it knew exactly what he was doing by putting that mineral into the hands of the farmers in his county. And the warning did not speak of toxicity or dosage. It spoke of dependency. It said, in the words that someone copied by hand before the booklet disappeared from the shelves, something like this: "The knowledge that does not need to be bought again is the only thing no one can take from you." That is what makes this mineral different from everything they sell you in the gardening aisle every spring. It does not run out with use. It does not expire. It does not require a new version next year. The physics that makes borax destroy the intestinal bacteria of a larva on the trunk of your apple tree is the same physics from 100 years ago. The chemistry that changes the pH of the leaf and kills powdery mildew has no expiration date, and the mechanism of trophallaxis that collapses an entire ant colony from the inside is not going to change next season. What is going to change is your garden. If you decide to use this, hit the like button if this video gave you back something that should have already been yours. Share it with someone who still believes they need to buy a new spray every spring, and subscribe. If this story changed the way you look at what grows in your garden, subscribe to follow our channel. We are unearthing the history they tried to bury. Cultivate the future. The next treasure will open soon.